Shoot the breeze topic number one is, what do people think of this quote? What is this quote? Let me bring that up. This looks like it takes us to a tweet. I'm hoping my computer works properly tonight. I restarted it before the show, so let's hope. Yeah, this takes us to Twitter. And it's a tweet from Mwango Capital. Mwango Capital. Via AMB Professor Bitanji in demo. Quote, the biggest tragedy in our economy is not lack of capital to do business, but lack of creativity to think beyond the norm. So this was attached to this image here from the same professor, who says the biggest tragedy in our economy is not lack of capital to do business, but lack of creativity to think beyond the norm. Go to any rural setup, get 50 people, give them $100K to invest. 10 will start small shops, 10 will start a clothes selling business, 10 will start border, I don't know what that is, 10 will start poultry rearing, and the rest, some subsistence, improved irrigation farming, etc. Within 4 months, the kiosk will be closing due to low returns. Eggs and similar farm markets will flood the local markets. Similarly, get 50 people in Nairobi, give each $1 million. 10 will buy matutus. Tan might be able to decipher. It sounds like they're in Kenya, so Tan might be able to decipher that. 10 will be buying plots to build rental houses. 10 will start importing some stuff from China, etc. In short, none of us have creativity to venture in areas like manufacturing. Yet in every concept paper, we always talk of industrializing Kenya. Flats and malls will never be manufacturing industries, right? So that's a interesting tweet about the lack of creativity is more so the problem than the lack of resources. This should be a interesting conversation. I don't know if Tan heard the words. Okay, Bobby Wright says, border are the taxis. Okay, thanks for that. Bobby Wright earlier said, Habrigane to everyone who's here, right? Yeah, so what do people think of this quote? I thought it was interesting. Kevin Carway, what say you?
Let me think about that. Come back to me.
All right, Mr. Untouchable, what say you?
Koku, I don't really necessarily know if I agree with that. I on this very same platform, we saw kids produce making small cars from nothing out of the garbage can.
Right.
We saw many kinds of innovations with the young people, and I think if you were to go throughout Kenya and really look and examine what the young people have interest in, what are they doing, the young innovators of Kenya, innovators, and I'm sure that there exist innovators in Kenya as there are in Ghana with the young kid who's creating the car. I think that you should support these kinds of ventures economically and monetarily. Try to find out what the thinking is behind the innovation and where the shortfalls are economically, where you could assist. I think that this person is a little bit he is looking at certain elements that exist within this community. That's fine because there are a lot of these kinds of industries, but these industries are created out of necessity. These brothers them trying to eat. So I'm not going to be so critical of them because that's what their money that the monies they're going to receive from these kinds of ventures that they engage in. That's what's going to feed them. They're not necessarily looking at the long term, but I'm sure there exists few people, in particular within the younger community, that people who are interested in different kinds of various innovation, and there needs to be some investigation to see what the young people, what's going on within the communities, to see what the people that have interest in creating, grassroots people, rather than just being so critical. You know what I mean? And I know, well, I think that some of us as we age, we get very cynical because of what we see. But I think that sometimes what exists, sometimes we don't really take an interest in what we really not seeing. And like I say, if the white boys could go inside of these enclaves into African countries and find a little guy there who would innovating and creating little small cars for himself, little small things for himself, I think that there should be investigations with this particular individual because he is a PhD person, so he's a thinker. You know what I mean? I think that he is very pessimistic about Africa or African business or what African business can be. And I think that before he makes a statement like that, I think that he needs to be a little bit more objective. You know, he's very close. This is what they're gonna do. How do you know what I'm gonna do if I get $10,000? Maybe I might do this, but I might do this too. But I think that he just really just have one perspective, and it is very limited. And I think he's too cynical and pessimistic about what Africans can do if they were to get enough money to create something in Africa. So that's what I think about it.
I feel you on that, Untouchable. I will say that I think when you live long enough, you do see the tendency of people or the trends of people. And he perhaps have seen the trend that when Africans get some money to invest in something, they invest in the same types of things over and over and over. So I'll give him that benefit of the doubt. But you're right in that also, this guy's a PhD. Are these guys teaching innovative thinking? Are they teaching, you know, and also are they supporting? Like we talked about, you mentioned the kid who was building the car somewhere on the continent. I can't remember where now, but um, is someone putting that kid through a process where he could scale that up and make it into something?
Uh,
Because go ahead.
no, probably not. Coco, the other day I went to a fast food place, a local fast food place, and as I was starting up waiting to get my food, there was a young guy, young kid, waiting in line. And me and him, for some strange reason, we just sparked up a conversation. As I asked him, "How's he doing in school?" He said, "I get A's and things like that." And I asked him, "What does he want to do when he finishes school?" He said to me that I want to be a YouTuber. Now, when the fellas around who was sitting around waiting for their food, when they heard him, they started to laugh because usually the regular thing is, oh, you get a job, you work as you get a job, you work some career, a policeman, lawyer, doctor. He said something that was outside of the scope of people understanding, not realizing there are YouTubers who make millions of dollars. He said he want to be a gamer. Why am I gonna trap him into the regular economy when he is thinking outside of the box? Because it's possible for him to make millions of dollars on YouTube today. Why am I? So I didn't laugh at him. I encouraged him. I said that, hey, as long as you are able to make enough money to support your family and make enough money to ensure that your family is living well, you do become the best YouTuber ever. Because I could be talking to the next, I don't know, he was 10 years old. You know what I mean? And I was set aback by the commentary because I'm like, that's new. I never heard it before. But so what? They are supposed to say something that's outside of the paradigm that we've been given, because it's the onus is on them to create something that is new. Because we are limited. I mean, you've been brought up thinking lawyer, doctor, engineer, policemen, etc., etc. They outside of the paradigm. Why limit them? So I would support him if he was to try to create something that is sustainable economically, that is something different. Why am I to laugh at that? And I think that with these brothers, I feel like he is in his pile high and deep phase of life. When you get the PhD, they so restricted and rigid. They don't know there are other places and other venues you can move economically through the world and still be able to support your family and do something new. So, the young kid might be a young innovator, and it's not the onus is not my on me to stifle that level of creativity. So I didn't laugh at that, and I think that this man who was a thinker, he should be more objective. That's where I fall on it. But I'll stop.
Not to belabor the point, but yeah, that word you use is the proper word here. That rigidity. When I was growing up in NASA, I could tell you this. If the elders around you aren't kind of, forward thinking, you're going to grow up in this box in NASA. I can tell you that now. If you like art, you like to draw and all that kind of thing, paint, and you're going to be discouraged from that. You understand? That's how it was when I was coming up. You're going to be discouraged from that, and you're going to be directed to do the things that Mr. Untouchable mentioned, right?
Imagine if Sidney Poitier in the Bahamas to tell his parents, and I'm sure he did at one point, he probably
Yes.
had to get out of there, told his parents, "Mommy, I want to be an actor." You know what they tell him? Nigga,
Carry
you
on and go find a book.
so I find it's important to allow some of our young people, when they have this ingenuity, this innovation in their head, this vision in their head, not to completely stifle it and cut it out. You have to allow your people to fly if they can.
Yes. Let's welcome in Achieve Mindset. Haven't heard from this brother in a while. Achieve Mindset, how are you this week?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I've been doing okay so far, so
Welcome
good.
back.
Yeah, I want to be briefly, but I was, I got on YouTube quickly, and I was like, what are you guys talking about? So I like this topic, in general. I do agree with the person that made the post in the sense that there is a lack of creativity, and in terms of the YouTube reference, I know there's a YouTube channel like called RDC World One where these guys just make animes, um, videos and stuff. It's quite funny, but they end up creating their own convention for black people like animes, right? So they've expanded upon it to make more money. And then there are other people that use YouTube so they can get into, be TV presenters and stuff, which is okay. But I think when we talk about individuality and collectivity, this is where the problem begins. I think the man is talking about collectively as a race. We're not really doing anything, and that's something that I feel like is very important. It goes back to a certain problem where you like, for example, October just passed in the UK, so Black History Month just came by, and all people could talk about is the first black person to do this, or the second first person to do this. Person, Usain Bolt, won the 100-meter race, set a new record. Or Barack Obama, first, black president, stuff like that. But the problem that people don't seem to realize is that Obama being the president or any black person being the first major actor or whatever, like Denzel, doesn't mean anything for anybody in the race. That's their own individual accolade. As a race, we're not really moving forward with anything, and it's that kind of issue that we are steering away from collectivity to working as a collective to individuality to working as an individual, and we're not really achieving anything. And you look at, for example, you look at the West and you look at Asia. These people work as a collective. As much as Europe, much as was doing, Europeans will like to talk about individuality and individual freedom. People work as a collective to build stuff. They have industries. You know, what's funny is that, for example, Germany, people say they're the best car makers, but somehow nobody's Europe is able to match that. Understand? They know that's where you go for cars. That's that they have an industrial powerhouse. Other nations focus on different things. And that's the main thing that, I feel like this person is trying to get here. We're not building interconnecting economy that's based on, that relies on each other. Nigeria's economy is not relying on, Togo's or the next door neighbors. It relies on Europe, and it goes back to kind of what's it called, the ECOWAS, where they were setting up the same thing as the EU. These Africans that want to do, or these Pan Africans wanted to create the kind of EU like state so that they can stop them from reducing prices that Africans have to pay for certain stuff for raw goods, or sell raw goods at a lower price. People forget that they have power. They have NATO behind them, and soon they're gonna have a EU army. And also, there's a reason why the EU was established. It was to prevent them from killing each other. You understand? So they have a historical context, a cultural context, in order to build an economic ground. You know, if for example right now, you know, Nigeria makes a deal with the UK, is Ghana going to step in and say, no, you're not allowed to make the deal? You understand? Because we created this region so we can all negotiate as a collective. It hasn't happened. So, you know, this problem hits many different things rather than just the individual. And you know, it's also one thing is that when you do things as an individual and you make your money, it's good for you. But as a collective, where does that leave us? You understand what I'm saying? And I feel like the main professor's point is really regarding to us as a collective, how are we building the economy for us to be sustainable? And I think I believe that's more where he's trying to go at. You know, I think that's yeah, that's what I have to say.
I appreciate that achieved mindset. Gas them up. You're here this week. Good show last night. Did you catch the prompt?
Yes, sir. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah, I'm driving.
Oh, okay.
Having me shout out to everybody on panel. I I agree with what the person posted on the tweet.
The
I
tweet.
think they was, and I think the problem is though that the person didn't do a better or deeper analysis. You know, it's very surface. Because the truth of the matter is, whether we look at, for example, you know, we look at China.
Yes, you're breaking up. All right, gas seems to be. You're still breaking up a little bit. You have to go ahead and come back in, all right? In the meantime, let's go to Tanzan. Tanzan, what say you to this?
Oh, greetings, and I do apologize if things don't go well technologically. I hope they do. So in regards to this, I would say firstly that if you look at the kinds of things that he says, let's apply that to any country. If you take the poor people of any country and then give them money, and then for them, what will they do? They'll start small shops, which is small businesses. They'll start cloth selling business. Start border is actually they are the motorcycles, the ones that you see people holding on to,
the scooters.
and yeah, sort of. Yeah, I think that's the closest to that. But yeah, they're very oh man, if I start praising them, I'll go on all day. But they have really facilitated a lot of traffic and trade between a lot of people. You know, Uber right now relies on borders to deliver their products. The hospitals, they deliver, you know, because they can weave in and out of traffic. And if Kasida will tell you about Nairobi traffic, it is yeah, it can be something of a mess. But you know, the borders, they can weave in and out, and they can actually cut through that mess. So they are very essential to transportation. They are a cheap way for people to get around, and so they're useful. And some people make money from them. So there's the border, and then poultry rearing. So some of them will start farming. So imagine in any country, if they gave people money, let's say in America, they gave poor people money, and everybody started rearing poultry and, you know, selling businesses and doing delivery services and so on. And then some of them will do irrigation and farming. What's wrong with those things? I mean, yes, they're not like big, you know, great things, and they're not exactly creative, but those are the kinds of things that do run a country. Now, and then he's saying that he's going to give them individual money, instead of saying, if we started a corporation with, say, poultry farmers, what would they invest in? Because he's accusing them of, you know, acting individually, while he's treating them individually as well. Because if it's a collective effort, if the problem is the lack of collectivity, then why are you giving it to individual people? Of course, if you give people individually, they'll do individual solutions to their individual problems. Yeah, they're not going to say, let's come and put the money together. But if you say, how would a cooperative, a farmers cooperative, do work with the money, how they, and there are certain, those cooperatives here in Kenya and so many other places, there are women's chamas and things like that. That's what he should be looking at. How is the money spent collectively instead of, giving lottery money to individual people? Like, it's a very bad and false analysis, and it's very shoddy. So that's the first thing I would say, that in fact those businesses are the mainstream of any small country. Every small country, every country wants to boost up its small businesses and its local farmers and so on. So it's not a lack of creativity. And then he says that the biggest tragedy is not lack of capital. If he had said that is not just a lack of capital, that would have been one thing. But the biggest thing to problems right now is the lack of capital. Most of these people, if you give those people, at the 10 that will start, the borders and the small shops, one of them will become, a mogul in that industry. Well, 5 of them will become, 3 of them will become, rich in that industry. So dismissing that as say, they lack creativity, is also to be very, very short-sighted. So that's what I would say about that. So I just don't go on and on. But it's not, he's totally misreading the problem. It's both a lack of capital and a lack of creativity. Now the second thing is, once you give people the capital and they start the non-creative businesses that he's saying, now you can talk to them as a group and say, well, what more can you do? How can you now control the supply chains instead of simply being the end seller? How can you start expanding your business horizontally and so on, instead of just telling people that, you're limited in your creative means? And yet, of course, capital is limited. If you're limited in capital, you're going to do limited ventures. Yes, that's all for me. Thank you.
Sorry, but Tan, here's a question. What if these typical sectors that the Africans are joining when they have a chance, right? What if those sectors are saturated, right? And what if he's speaking to that? Maybe he might be speaking to the fact that, we have enough people in these areas. Let's try to start up, different areas of interest, right? Like, what if that's the conversation?
That part I do agree with. I do agree with that part, because they always say that if one person starts a successful chicken stand, there'll be like 6 or 7 by the end of the week or month.
In no time, there'll be a bunch of other people there trying to sell chicken too. In no time.
Okay, that point I will concede, because there is a lack of creativity in that. I think, instead of criticizing that replication, and that's what people do. If they see something that is successful, they see, well, if they can do it, I'm just going to copy the model. Why reinvent the wheel? If somebody is doing it, let me do the same. So you can't really blame the second, third, or fourth person who does that, because it's working until it's not. So what we need to change is, how do we, what other opportunities do we give in that industry that people can start thinking beyond just, if somebody starts the chicken store, why can't I be the one to supply the potatoes, for example? Why can't I be the one to, get the oil and the materials and things like that? So I think that's the aspect that we need to be looking at, that if something is successful, let me look at other ways of getting in on it instead of doing the same thing that they're doing. So yes.
The tangential kind of areas, like we got to start thinking more cottage industry kind of thing. Okay, if you own a supermarket, like Tan said, I'm going to be the one, providing the chickens or potatoes or whatever.
I think also they if you really look at it, the industries that they get into, the barrier to entry is very low. So I think that if you were to get in the industry where the barrier to entry is a little bit higher, I think that you would see, because you can't just start a medical office, or you can't just start another pharmacy unless you have some license and things of that nature. But there's a big need for a pharmacy. There's a big need for a medical office in certain areas. So I think that if we were to get into industries where the barrier to entry isn't so low, and this is the rub, because a lot of people may not have the money to send their kids to professional schools or get professions where you could create businesses where the barriers to entry is a little bit higher. What I would say though is, in the first generation, sure, you have people create the tuck shops, you have people create the border borders, you have people selling clothing and things like that. But then their children, they'll have enough money, they would have saved enough money for where their children could enter different kinds of industries where the barriers to entry will be a little bit higher. There you will
Brother
see.
Untouchable, can you guys hear me
Sorry,
now?
sure, go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
No, I just want to make sure. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
Yes.
perfect. Yeah, Brother Untouchable. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No worries. Yeah. So maybe their children would be have the capacity to enter industries where the barrier to entry will be a little bit higher, because they'll have a grounding. They'll have an economic grounding because their families, their mothers and fathers, grandfathers would have created enough money with the border borders and the small shops to be able to advance their children a little bit further. You understand what I mean? So they could enter industries which is needed in the community, but the barriers to entry will be a little bit higher.
With that said, let's go to gas them up. Gas them up. What say you? Unmute your mic. Yes.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Well, we did for a second.
Yeah, he's in and out, man. He's in and out.
Yeah. Gas is in and out.
Can I add something?
What about
Yeah.
now? Is it better now?
Well,
Is
keep
it better
talking.
now?
Keep talking.
All
Yeah.
right, listen quickly. Here's what I just want to quickly point out. Look, the problem is not the professor is correct in his tweet, but he's only going surface level. China was given the ability to develop by the United States removing factories over to China, right, from the inner cities. African governments have to be able to spur entrepreneurship. Tesla is given government grants, corporate welfare. You look at, for example, all the cloud software that Amazon is able to provide to the government, right? Boeing, Lockheed, all people who are getting government and military contracts. So that's financing entrepreneurship in that way. Africans don't have the tax base, and the United States and European countries can float their debt. So it's very easy to put them in. They're not developing the industrial
You're in the matrix.
industry.
You're in the matrix. You're in the matrix.
What about now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me
Yeah, I
now?
can hear you. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, but look, while I'm just like I said, it has to be a governmental effort to provide the capital for people to be able to expand, or provide the circumstances so people can expand. It needs to be consistent electricity, has to be enforcement of business contracts. There just has to be a whole top-down reapproach in terms of this thing we're calling capitalism. So it's very easy for us to blame the simple entrepreneur with their small ideas and capacity. But if you look at China, it's a governmental effort. It's not. It's government with private entrepreneurs, and it's missing out because African governments.
Yeah, we lost you for the last couple seconds there. No. I want to get Gastamup's thoughts, but I don't want to hold up stuff. So let's go to Achieve Mindset, who wanted to say something. Gas, we'll bring you back in after.
What I was gonna say was Gassama just said it himself. Like, example is COVID, right? When COVID came, there were so many engineers who came up with their own hands-free wash basin, hands-free, public cleaning stations. And I think I mentioned here before, the government didn't invest in none of them. They went and bought the ones from Turkey, Lebanon, and everything to fill in their airports. We're not investing in our own people because deep down, within our race, there is a disrespect for people who are clever and people who are able to do stuff, you know. And I think that's something that needs to be rooted out, because you have to realize that, I think a lot of people really don't look at the science revolution from the time slavery started making Europeans a lot of money. People don't study it because it's very easy for them to have had their kind of like a little bit of disrespect for the smart people. Said, look, we've got these people, we don't really need your innovations, but they knew to invest ahead of time into those stuff so that it will improve their civilization. And it goes back to, like I read a book somewhere where I think one of the early people who invested in, he was a scientist professor, was selling snake oils to fund his own experiments, and he was getting kicked out of different universities. This was before they began their whole, new world adventure. And after they brought money in, they started investing in manufacturing and stuff like that. But they allowed smart people to lead. And I think that's one of the biggest problems. We don't have smart people leading the country who are technocrats in a sense. And you look at China, technocrats built that country to where it is. You look at, a simple example is USSR. As much as we can talk about Stalin, Stalin was no genius, but he knew himself that if I want my nation to get to the level of the US and compete, we have to let these technocrats build the city to a certain level. So the nation to a certain level. So they build the railways, they got the boats, then the ships, the warships, and they build stuff again and again and again. So is that real big problem? Is that when would the politicians actually step aside and let the technocrats actually govern the country? But it's about power and money. If you're not going to be able to pay somebody's pockets, you're not going to be able to, get things done. I mean, it's as simple as this. Like, I think last week or the week before, somebody was talking about a lady losing her house, land in Ghana, right? You would never see that happen to a European person in Africa. You just have to go to the embassy and report to the embassy, and the embassy will talk to the government, and they'll get their land. You understand? But she being American, if she goes to the American embassy for them to fight her case, they'll tell her, you know what, that's your problem. You understand? And that shouldn't be, that kind of disrespect or cheating shouldn't be amongst our people, but it is there. So, it's this problem of building an economy requires discipline, requires more cultural and social discipline. And I think, this it's going to take a while to fix that.
Real black gentleman, what say you to this? First of all, how are you this week?
Oh, I'm good. I had to step away, so I really wasn't into I wasn't paying attention to what people were saying, but as I'm reading it, yeah, I mean, people aren't manufacturing, and part of that has to do with the fact that I mean, I would say, just to be short about it, manufacturing requires some kind of industrial and just tinkering kind of a sense. In order to you got to have an inventive sense in order to make something. I had mentioned, you have to reverse engineer things. And we still have to have in order to tinker, you kind of have to have broken things and bits and pieces to even practice with. You can do things from a basic, setup. You can kind of manufacture, out of raw materials, but it kind of helps if you have something to kind of break down. I think that, Africans, even in this country, we in the United States, not when I say this country, in the United States, especially of all, industrialized nations, the black, manufacturing class isn't very strong. And I think a lot of that does have to do with the fact that we do tend to, we're kind of we cannot risk our capital in the same way to do a lot of things. And I think that's part of that's mindset. Part of that is just influence, subconscious and conscious influences. you know, is not taking like it's not like a creativity. I mean, part of it is like, you know, making sure that our minds are we have to encourage each other. You know, the you know, just the idea that we can make, you know, things of ourselves. Although making things take time, and when you're put into an economy where it's almost plug and play, where we have a role for you, we have a role for you, we have a role for you. Go ahead and get your skills. We have a role for you. You don't necessarily have the time to again tinker and manufacture. So I would say that's part of it. I'm gonna pass the mic.
All right. Gas hasn't returned yet, but what we'll do is, and you know, that was a good conversation. Yeah.
I want to quickly say something. I think that we are, to the brother's point, I think that we are risk averse. Some of us, not all
for
of
sure.
us. And I think that there are industries, innovative industries that we get into. Let me name one. The hair care industry. There are a lot of black women who have done the tinkering inside their own homes at night, and they create these little hair care products. They bottle them, and then they sell them to they start selling them to other hair people, and then they start selling it to small stores, and all of a sudden they selling it to Walmart. Same product start out of a kitchen somewhere. And I think that a lot of black women become very wealthy. The problem is they sell their patents after a certain point. They sell their patents to white people who offer a little bit of money, offer them a couple of $1 million, money they probably have never seen, and we are the black women quick to take that because they figure, well, there's no way I could accumulate this amount of money in my lifetime. And I think that a lot of our women are short sighted. You have some black women who made hair care products here in the Bahamas and sold it and ended up selling some of their products in Walmart as well. You know, and it's happened before. There I see every day. I'll pass some people on the street, bums, you know, people who dress badly. Let me don't say bums, dress badly. You know, they'll sell rat poison, homemade rat poison. It'll kill all the rat poison in the area. And I'm thinking to myself, my goodness, this person don't realize what they have. But I understand the person may have tinkered and created a product that could kill a lot of rats, but he don't know marketing. He may not necessarily have the mindset to go to a store and propose an opportunity, packaging all these things, and then propose these things to people where he could sell his product on different shelves in different stores. Instead, he holds up a sign and say rat poison for sale. Let me sell it to you for $5. I feel some days I just want to buy whatever his remedy is, because I know I'll probably be able to sell it on the American market, package it right, and sell it as Mr. Untouchable's rat poison. Because I know he just need to give me the things what went into it, and then just mass market that joint. There are some brothers who selling car products, will make your car very, very clean. You know, they sell it on the side of the road, and some of them are very successful. And I'm like, man, you could take this to another level. In my mind, I'm like, don't you know if you were selling these kinds? Because the brother just sells it in a bottle without any labeling, anything like that. I'm like, don't you know, man, you could sell the same product in the American market and make millions of dollars. This is your thing. Just patent it. And I think that there's some more investigate. It's not the fact that we lack innovation. It's the other side of it. You know, we talked about show and business. The rappers, they bring their talent to the table because they understand how to rap. So that's the show, but they don't understand the business. And the business is the main part of the whole venture. So you have to be able to couple them two together to understand the game in its totality. So when it's time to make money, you are making the largesse of that money rather than some small hat taking all of your money for you. You know, I think that these are things that needs to be investigated within our community, because we are not we are not short of talent, we are not short of innovation, we are not short of brilliance. It's just the business aspect of it. I think that we fall short of that. You know, when it's time to play that game. I'll stop there.
Let's see if Gas's mic is working. Gas's.
Is it better now?
Well, we'll see. We can hear you now.
Okay, yeah. I think they were playing with my mic, but look, I just want to quickly say, you know, I don't think there's ever been a serious exploration of this thing we call capitalism, right? And how it's intertwined with government and government expenditure, government licensing, right? Government providing opportunities for entrepreneurs. If you think about the people who colonized us, the Dutch East India Company, Dutch West India Company, right? You got British Petroleum. These are all proofs that in its inception, capitalism had large intertwines with government. So I think it's easy for us to, again, point at these people without saying, hey, wait a minute, why are the governments not facilitating the right avenues and the right environment for them to be able to industrialize, as Brother Untouchable was, Juan Hagaziki was saying about the barriers to entry. So the barriers to entry in this thing called capitalism, of course, they're going to open a Bora Bora, go import some products because, you know, do you know how much it is? I was researching it just to get a small factory. You're looking at like $4 million cash, 4 million. And that's not a guarantee that you'll make your money back. So, you know, the question is, then do we play the game differently? Do we try to approach capitalism differently as to how we industrialize? Can we do it on a smaller scale level? You know, those are the type of conversations, right? Like I was talking to Tan before about, you know, when we look at, for example, the way we construct our homes in Africa, we have mud architecture that's still standing from the 1400s all over West Africa, yet no one looks at it. No one wires houses like that to see, hey, wait a minute, what can we do with it? Is it feasible? No one takes a look at it. So I think it's much bigger than us aping, you know, European ideas of development and European ideas of manufacturing. Because the truth of the matter is, for me, on the research, they didn't do it just one swashbuckling entrepreneur. They did it with heavy government collusion, right? Like someone, I saw a video with the guy Andrew Tate, and I think he's correct. He said, for example, why is it that America doesn't have high-speed rails? Well, because, you know, car manufacturers and oil companies don't want America to have high-speed rails, so they're lobbying against it. But we could have high. It's actually cheaper and more efficient than trucks in terms of environment for you to have high-speed rails that's transporting food and things like that. You know, so that just shows you government intervention is a big issue in terms of this global game of capitalism. And when you look at the Chinese Communist Party has an arrangement where they're basically saying, hey, listen, we'll allow you to have your factories and expand as an entrepreneur, but you still, you know who plays the tune that you all will dance to, and that's us. So no one will get bigger than them. So I think he, I don't know him, perhaps, you know, but I think he could have done a much deeper insight analysis into how Africans can start, again, raising taxes. Because if we're going to copy the West, which I'm not, you know me, I want to be in my village with my 3 wives, right? But if we're going to copy the West, then screw it. Let's get a tax base. Let's be able to float bonds. Let's make, you know, the honoring of contracts feasible. Let's make sure our legal systems aren't just, you know, places of justice. They're sites of justice where people can actually get their contracts enforced. So if that's what we're going to do, we have a lot of groundwork to do. But the truth of the matter is that takes governmental leadership. The average guy who's doing a Bora Bora, he's not thinking about that. He just wants to pay his child's school fees. He's not able to analyze the macroeconomic situation 10, 15, 20 years out. So that's just my little 3 cents on that.
Thank you for that, Gas. I appreciate it. Kevin Carey, we were supposed to come back to you. What say you?
Yeah, this guy with a tweet, he just sounds like a very, you know, elitist person. Because I've heard stuff like this for years. You know, as a kid, you know, oh, why you want to do that? You know, you should be, you know, an accountant. I went to high school for accounting. I hated it. You know, going to college, I didn't find out later until my last year in you know, September 2001. Hey, I want to be a photographer, and I've been a photographer ever since. It's all, as I said, sometimes you just got to ignore these people and move on. These are, as I said, it's noble, these old profession, but if you look at it in the long scheme of things, a lot of these positions, accounting, even the basic things in what lawyers do, it's all going to AI now. you got to be creative in what you do in this day and age. And the benefit I have is being around a lot of young people, and I like the way they're going. They're like, yo, listen, we can't get into the industry. A lot of them not even want to go to college anymore. A lot of them talking about it's a scam, which I believe. But I've been an entrepreneur since I got out of college. I've never really worked a 9-to-5 job. I don't fit in that environment. It's not for everyone. We got to meet people where they are. You can't just assume that everyone's gonna fit. You can't fit a square in a circle. So as someone said earlier, you got to create different industries. That's how you build your economy. Money is money. Like Koku, there's an example. I have old comic books. Anyone here collect comic books or ever collected comic books? Hello, can you hear me?
I used to collect Archie back in the day.
All right. So there's something I never thought about until I started researching. You know what a heat press is, right? Like you press your t-shirts with, right?
Yes.
You can use that. You get like let's say you have old comics that it had spine tips, like the spine is like those little cracks, or water damage. I learned how to restore those comics. There's a big business now because of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU. They're bringing a lot of old characters. Like some people, like in the 90s, I bought a comic for like $3. It was a very basic. No one thought about it. Now that certain character he's gonna come to the MCU. That comic shot up to like at least $200, like overnight. But what I was saying with the heat press, you can learn how to restore that comic. You do a little bit of humidifying with the comic. Then you put the thing in the middle, the middle of the book where the spine is, and you press it for 15 minutes and you leave it there for like 15 hours. That's people pay big bucks for that. It's a new era we're in now. You gotta start thinking about the box. That was our parents' generation, our grandparents. We gotta start thinking freely, start thinking more decentralized. But I'll leave it here. I'll leave it here.
I appreciate that,
man. That's brilliant, man. Because I would have never thought of.
I don't take credit for that. I heard it from the internet.
It's just no, but the thinking. Who would have think that you could make money out of restoring old comic books? Yeah, it's like man. Oh goodness, man. But thank you for that, though.
Real quick too. Did you know? I think they said the first appearance of Superman, not Superman #1. It's recession proof. It just keeps going up. The price keeps going up, even if it's missing a cover. Like, good example, Captain America. Someone paid a lot of money for just one page of it, not the whole book, a page. That's an industry. Stop trying to work for people. As I said, look at the AI. It's gonna be a problem with a lot of people that let in this country because there's gonna be a job for no one. You got to do your own thing, create your own.
All right. Thank you guys for that. That was a good conversation. Then I was just Shoot the Breeze topic #1. Let's go to Shoot the Breeze topic #2.